Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Canned Air, your tribute to pop culture. I am Jeremy Colley and had another awesome experience this week on the show. Got to talk to a voice legend who you've heard over the years in things like Johnny Bravo, The Emperor's New Groove, Monsters, Inc., Toy Story 2, Bug's Life, Star Wars The Bad Batch, Clone Wars, Animaniacs, Tiny Toon Adventures. Here's one that excited me. Neil Leeds in the 90s Spider-Man series. I love that series so much. But he's most famously known for, one, being the voice of Luke Skywalker in Star Wars video games. So many video games over the years. And as well as in Robot Chicken. But probably best known for his Looney Tunes work. Voicing Marvin the Martian, Tweety, Sylvester Jr., Speedy Gonzales. But most famously, Porky Pig. We welcome voice acting legend Bob Bergen to the show this week. And I got to tell you, this was one of those conversations. I always set them up as one of those amazing conversations because they always are. But this one hit a little bit differently for me in such a positive way. It was a great conversation. Bob's such a great guy. It was a lot of fun to talk to him. I'm excited for you guys to hear that. But before I turn you guys over to the conversation, don't forget to find us on Twitter at CannedAirPod and on Instagram at canned_air. And if you head over to CannedAirPodcast.com, there are two tabs on there that you can help support the show. One, our merch tab. There's t-shirts, mugs, stickers, hats, hoodies that have the Canned Air logo and other cool Canned Air inspired designs on them. Or there's a link to our Patreon page where for $5 to $10 a month gets you access to a ton of different content we've created that the general public don't get to hear. You can only hear them on Patreon, and there are hours upon hours of extra footage there. So be sure to check that out. And Evergreen Podcast Network, the network we're very proud to be a part of. We've been with a couple years now. They treat us so good. We're on that network with a lot of other great shows. So check them out, evergreenpodcast.com. The other thing I wanted to mention really quick is typically when I do these conversations, I have a few minutes that I talk with the person before we actually start the conversation for the show. That was not the case this time. From the second the phone was picked up, we just shot right out of the gate. And the beginning of the conversation might seem a little bit out of context, so I just wanted to give a little context before I turned it on. Bob was on a business call right before he was going to get on our call that ran just a few minutes over, which was no problem at all. I typically expect that kind of a thing, but Bob felt bad. So when he picked up the phone, he just launched right into what was going on. And I didn't want you guys to be left out of the loop as to what we were talking about at the very top of the episode. But I think that's all I had to say, so let's just cut it right over to my conversation with Bob Bergen.
You are very patient.
You were very kind. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Bob.
no problem. It was like it's a holiday week end.
Sure.
So all these like deadlines I wasn't expecting came at me when I was supposed to have nothing to do.
Isn't that the way?
So I'm like,
goes?
oh, okay, I got it. Okay. So anyway, that's what's going on. How you doing?
I'm doing well, doing really well. The weather's nice. I can't complain, man.
Where are you?
I'm in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, you're in LA?
I am in LA, but I spent 6 years in Cincinnati.
I read that. I did read that.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Not far from here. You were probably there during or before the Kenner years. That was a big Cincinnati staple.
I was not only there during the Kenner years. My dad was, I don't even know the guy's name, but was friends with an executive with Kenner who would give me prototype toys to play with.
No kidding.
And to get my opinion. And one of them was this dude where you could take his arms and his legs and stretch them.
Okay.
I said, what is it? And he goes, it's kind of like based on Plastic Man, but we can't use that because that's owned by, I think it was DC.
Yeah.
I said, so what about like Stretchy or Mr. Stretch? And he goes, oh, I like that. And so they decided on Stretch Armstrong.
You named Stretch Armstrong.
I can't take credit for it. I was probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10. And I just remember him bringing me this thing, and it didn't even have a face. It just had the body. It had a head, but it had a blank face.
Holy
and it was
hell.
And one of the things he wanted to do was he wanted me to take the legs and him take the arms and just keep walking through my parents' living room to see if he would explode. I remember my mom saying, "Whatever's inside that son of a bitch better not get my pocket."
You know, it's funny. I had one growing up, and it did rip open, and all this goopy corn syrup shit come running out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think they also had that Evel Knievel bike where you put the bike on and crank it up,
right,
and then push a button. And I got that too, but it wasn't Evel Knievel. It was just the bike.
Don't tell me you're responsible for naming that one too.
Not at all.
Okay.
But I did play with it. And I remember a buddy down the street and I played with it. And he came over, this guy came over, he goes, "How was it?" And I said, "Well, it's great, but it works too well because we lost it."
Oh. What, like in the bushes in the sewer? Where did you send it off to?
I think there was a creek behind our houses.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
And we were nowhere near it, but the dang thing really worked well. Maybe they actually made it less potent, so it wouldn't go quite as
away. Gotcha.
far. Yeah, but that was fun.
Those were fun toys, weren't they? They don't make them like they used to, truly. But Bob, thank you again so much for being here. It's awesome to talk with you. And before I get to asking my questions, I have to say I'm so glad you're recording from the room you're in. I've seen you in this room in other interviews, and I've been so intrigued by all the faces on the wall behind you. Could you explain that at all?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, I collect life masks. I collect life masks of people that I'm a fan of, or their work that I admire. And you're very young, so you probably won't know half the people up there.
Well, let me see. Let me see. I know there's Alfred Hitchcock. One of them looks like Boris Karloff.
Very good. Yep.
Robin Williams.
Very good. And by the way, that's the Robin Williams mask that was used in Mrs. Doubtfire when they took the plaster off, and they made the prosthetic makeup for the Mrs. Doubtfire character.
I remember that scene. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. And now, how about right next to Alfred Hitchcock? Is that Don Rickles?
Everyone says that. No. So that's Jack Nicholson.
Seriously?
Now, are you talking about this one or that one?
That one.
Okay, that's Jack Nicholson. So Nicholson wanted to prove to Warner Brothers that he wouldn't have to wear prosthetic makeup when he played the Joker. So he had them make a plaster mold of his face smiling, which is disgusting because plaster gets in your teeth.
Right.
And after they took the mask off and he still had plaster in his teeth, they looked at it and said, no, you need prosthetic makeup. You saw.
Didn't work out for him, but damn, what a cool wall.
So that's Marlon Brando, and that's James Cagney, Bob Hope. This is Buster Keaton. This is Vincent Price. Behind the lamp is Bela Lugosi. At the very, very top is Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr.
Oh my God, I love the Beatles. I mean, I know everyone does, but damn, how cool!
And then I'll give you one more if I can. So over on that side, you can barely see them. The gal with the bonnet is Katharine Hepburn, and the guy behind the lamp is James Dean.
Wow. How freaking cool. What got you started collecting those?
It's an odd genesis for some stupid reason. And why he would have this, I have no idea. I was looking to see if Mel Blanc had a life mask.
He probably doesn't, I would imagine.
He didn't. And the reason why these people had life masks is they were studio contract players. And part of their contract said they have to make a life mask in case they need to do prosthetic makeup for a part that you book.
Okay.
And so that way you don't have to sit there for 20 hours a day as they try things on.
Right. Incredible. What a cool
And so I was
man.
looking for Mel Blanc, and I got, I think, Alfred Hitchcock. And I went, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right.
That's really cool.
I'll take that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for explaining and sharing that. I've been so curious about it. And again, what a cool wall to have. But let's get started. Let me ask you some of these questions I've got here. Looking online, all the way back to the age of 5 is about the earliest I could find on you, where at 5 years old, you were recording television cartoons, mimicking cartoon characters, and knew at 5 years old you wanted to be Porky Pig. I'm curious what it is at age 5 that appealed to you about Porky over the other characters. Why not Daffy? Why not Bugs? Why Porky?
common question I get all the time: why not Mickey Mouse? I found him. I found him funny.
Sure.
I found that his personality, where he would try to stutter through something and then ad lib something else, I thought it was funny. And I mean, I'm 5. I didn't know that was an ad lib. I didn't even know what a stutter was.
Right.
I just knew that his character and his voice was funny. And my voice hadn't changed. I was 5,
Sure.
but I would sit in front of the TV and I would mimic cartoons back to cartoons, and I would record them and try to figure out, how to do them. And I've kind of figured just on my own that from hearing all of these characters from Warner Brothers, there was like a common denominator, which was Mel Blanc. I didn't know it was
Right.
Mel Blanc, and I was also probably not able to read credits back then either. But I just could tell. I remember saying to my parents, "I think it's the same person," and my mom said, "Yeah, his name is Mel Blanc." And so that's how that whole thing came. But I understand. I was 5.
Sure.
I mean, on Monday, a 5-year-old wants to be Porky Pig. On Tuesday, they want to be a baseball player. On Wednesday, they want to be an astronaut. So,
Right.
I don't. My parents took it too seriously that I wanted to play this animated character.
So is that what it was though at 5, like wanting to play them, or was it like I want to be Porky Pig with the curly tail and little jacket and stuff?
It was really, I want to do that for that sound. I just want to do that sound. I did not want to be a pig. I did not want to go around without pants. I even remember when I said to my parents, I want to be Porky Pig. I think they thought as a 5-year-old kid, well, tomorrow he's going to want to be Superman. Isn't that great?
Sure.
So, but I was really thinking, but I didn't know there was a thing called voiceover. I didn't know there were a thing. I didn't even know these were actors doing this. I just was like, and I taught myself, the pattern of his is stutter. And even though I'm just doing that in my own voice right now, I would do it in my own voice then because my voice hadn't changed.
Right.
But as far as I could tell, I thought I sounded just like him.
Yeah, I would say. How cool. Now speaking about Mel Blanc, at age 14, what a cool story this is. You went through the phone book looking for and found Mel Blanc's phone number and called and got to speak with the man. Can you tell me a little bit about that call and what it was like hearing your idol come through the phone talking to you?
It's sort of like you've got this mission to make this phone call, to reach out to this person. And then you're like, oh no, he's here. He's there. What do I say? So it was a combination of I'm determined to find him. And then what happened was, it's a long story. I've told it a million times. I found his number and I got his wife, and her name was Estelle. And I said, is Mr. Blanc there? She said, no, he's not. May I take a message? I said, what time do you expect him back? And she says, I think about 4:30 or something. And I think I started calling at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
And at 9:05, I called back. And at 9:35, I called back. And she was very sweet. No, he's still not here. No, he's still not here. And at like 4:30, one moment, Mel, it's him. And he was very sweet. He said, how did you get my number? And I looked. Well, my dad had collected phone books. There was for people who don't know what a phone book is, they had a thing called the yellow pages for businesses and the white pages for residential phone numbers. And I told my dad I want to call Mel Blanc. And, I looked in a phone book and couldn't find his number. And my dad said, LA is a lot bigger than Cincinnati. Sure. So he traveled from like Pasadena to Malibu and collected white page phone books from post offices. And I just had this big stack of phone books. And I called every Mel or M Blanc in the book. Couldn't find it. And then I thought I'll look under his wife's name, Estelle. And I found E Blanc in the Pacific Palisades. And that's how I talked to him. I taped the conversation, which is completely illegal. But
right.
It was 1978. 45 years, I guess. I'm fine. I think I'm not going to jail for this.
No,
and he's dead.
Yeah,
so
you're
I think
good.
I think I'm okay.
And that call is entertaining to listen to, which is on your website, bobbergen.com. Love hearing it because you can, you hear the nerves and the excitement in your voice, but at the same time, you're dead set on, asking what you're there to ask. But one thing about that recording, and I don't know if it's just that you were putting up a section of it, but it seems like that call, at least the recording cuts off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you explain how was the rest of that conversation?
Yeah. What happened was I just listened to that tape every day over and over and over again, and would rewind it and listen, rewind it and listen. And on one rewind, the cassette tape got caught in the rotary of my tape recorder, and I took the tape out, and it was like, the string.
Yes,
and
I
I
do.
and I yanked, and it ripped, and it just completely broke in half. And I was really depressed, and I threw it away. And my mother found it in the garbage can, and she thought, well, maybe someday these can be saved. Who knows? And she
Right.
put it in her dresser drawer. And like, I don't know, 25 years ago, she called me up and she says, I was just cleaning out my dresser drawer and I saw this tape. Do you remember it? I said, yeah. And so I took it to a buddy at a radio station who spliced it back together and digitally enhanced it. So that's what I've got on my website. But I will tell you that if you listen to the end of the long tape on my website, the long recording, my mom, everyone was out of the house when I was talking to Mel Blanc, and I had signs everywhere. Talking to Mel Blanc, don't hang up the phone, because I had the phone in the kitchen on the little built-in mic of my tape recorder. And my mom either just didn't notice there were these giant signs and just hung it up.
Oh,
and,
no.
And she comes into her bedroom where I was on the phone talking to him. I said, let me ask you another question, Mr. Blanc. My mom goes, oh no. She goes, runs back in, and she picks up the phone, but she turned it the wrong way. So the last half of the conversation was hard to hear anyway, because she didn't put the right part of the telephone on the built-in mic of the tape recorder. But it broke anyway, so it wasn't salvageable anyway.
How cool to even have, though, what you have left of it. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. And it wasn't too long after that you got to witness him working. You got to watch him work. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, during that conversation, I asked him if they're still doing cartoons. I didn't know. And he told me that Warner's animation departments closed down in the late 60s, like about 10 years earlier. And I said, so are you doing anything with these characters? He goes, oh, yeah, we do commercials. We do toys. And he mentioned that he was recording an arena show. Like think Disney on Ice, but without the ice.
Okay.
With the Looney Tunes. And I said, oh, do you do that at Warner Brothers? And he goes, no. He mentioned the name of the studio. And the studio was a place called Bell Sound in Hollywood, still there. And I said, oh, and you're doing that right now? He goes, yeah, we're finishing it up this week. But he didn't tell me the day or the time, just that he was doing it that week. So when I was done with him, I called that studio because he mentioned the name, and I pretended to be his assistant. And I said, hi, I'm calling to confirm Mel Blanc's appointment this week. And I totally made this up, for Thursday at 9. And they're like, well, we have him on the calendar for Wednesday at 11. I went, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm looking at the wrong day on the calendar. Forgive me. That's another job. Thank you so much. And I told my mom, skipping school on Wednesday, and we're going to go watch Mel Blanc work. And she said, okay, cool. And when we got to the studio, I told the receptionist that we were guests of Mel Blanc, and he invited us to watch. And she said, he's over there in that studio over there. And when I went to that studio over there, I told his producer, hi, we're friends of the receptionist. And she said we could watch. And so that's how I got to watch him work.
You are clever as hell. I would have never thought of any of that. Wow. Wow. So did he see you? Did you get any interaction with him that day?
So he was recording, and in the middle of the recording session, and at the end of the recording session, I said, I'm the kid that called you a couple of days ago. He goes, oh yeah. And he gave me an autograph, and I have it on my wall there. I have it blown up over my recording booth. And as we're driving away, I said to my mom, I don't think I can be Porky Pig right now. He's still doing it. And my mom goes, and your voice hasn't changed, and you're in 9th grade. So other than that, I think you're right. You can't do this right now. So I got home from that session, and I called Hanna-Barbera, and I said, I just saw Mel Blanc. I want to do what he does. How do I do it? And they referred me to Dawes Butler, who was all the voices of Hanna-Barbera that Mel Blanc wasn't. And right. And so that began my training. And I started studying voiceover and eventually acting and improv uh, at about 14 and a half.
That's incredible. To be trained by Dawes Butler. I mean, a
Yeah,
legend.
Dawes was great. Dawes was amazing.
Wow. Incredible. Then, okay, so then in 1989, we unfortunately lose Mel Blanc. And then 1990, you get to voice not only Porky the Pig, but, Marvin the Martian, Tweety, Sylvester Jr., Speedy Gonzales, which is really cool. But I imagine this time being somewhat of a mixed bag of emotions for you. Your dreams are coming true, but at the same time, as a result of the passing of your idol.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many layers of emotions. First of all, I was already working in the business. I had a really good agent.
Right.
And I was at a place from a professional point of view where I had an agent with enough clout and a body of work where Warner Brothers would see me to audition for these characters. But then there's also, because Mel Blanc died. And yeah, the fanboy in me is like, oh my gosh, this will never happen again. Because, I've been doing Porky, not exclusively. There's other people who have done all the characters at some point. But yeah, no, none of us are like him. None of us are as good as him. He's the genius. We do our best. So it was a combination of a little bit of a mourning of his loss, right, and an excitement but you have to understand the odds were against me. I mean, what were the odds that I would be in LA at the time when they needed somebody to audition for these characters, and I'd have the skills, I'd have the clout in the business to have an agent who had the clout to get me in. So the planets just aligned really, really, really well.
I would say so. That's incredible, though. Let me see where to go from here. Let's talk a little bit about Porky the Pig, because he's one of the most distinct voices in all of cartoons, and I would imagine that he's probably also one of the most difficult. Now, you've already been talking about, you've been working on this voice, practicing it since the age of 5, so I would imagine by this time you'd had it mostly worked out, but was there still more work to be done when that day came? Or did you already have it in the bag?
Hang on one sec.
Sure.
I just had to turn Alexa off for a second because I didn't want her interrupting this while all of my reminders. Alexa, stop! Damn it! All right, this is called like live TV. Okay. Sometimes I'll ask her, "Hey, who's Porky Pig?" and she'll just talk about the character, and just to see if she mentions that I'm part of this equation, and she does, which is nice. So you've made it if Alexa talks about you.
I need to try that. I'll probably be disappointed though if I do it.
I will tell you that when I first started doing the character, the early jobs, and by the way, I have never had a contract to play this character.
No kidding.
Every time I work, nobody who does a classic character has a lifetime contract. Every time there's a new job, commercial, cartoon, movie, toy, whatever, I sign a contract for that particular gig, and I still have to audition for him after all this time. So that's showbiz. That's just how it works. The early days. So my first job was Tiny Toon Adventures, and they had Mel Blanc's son Noel in to do it first, and they collectively were like, "He's not his dad. He's not as good." His dad's dying wish was that Noel do these characters. And
okay.
And his dad did die thinking his son was going to do it, which I think is amazing. It's awesome. That's charming as hell. But they didn't like what he was doing with the character. They animated an episode, and I'd already had a dozen auditions to play this character before this. And I just got a phone call. Can you come in and do an episode of Tiny Toons? I said, sure. So that was my first job. And then we started doing McDonald's Happy Meal commercials and things for the war or things like that. So the studio would play me like a 20-minute reference tape before every session of Mel Blanc doing Porky Pig. Some of it was from the 30s, some from the 40s, some from the 50s. some from the 60s. And I'm like, well, which one do you want? And they're like, well, it's all Porky Pig. I said, well, no. The character evolved. And Mel Blanc wasn't the original voice of Porky Pig. The original voice was a guy who actually stuttered. And wasted.
No kidding. So
Yeah,
that was just worked into the character as a result of his natural stutter. Wow.
Well, that was the personality of the character, but the actor stuttered. And he wasted so much film because they recorded on film back then because tape didn't exist yet. And Jack Warner was tired of paying so much for film stock for all these animated shorts. So they brought in Mel Blanc, who could control the stutter and also create that ad-libbing comedy personality to the character. But I would say to the Warner Brothers executives, look, when Mel Blanc first got it in the 30s, he was doing his best impression of the original guy. And then it started to evolve. And then each director, from Chuck Jones to Friz Freleng to Bob Clampett to Robert McKimson, they all had their own take on what they thought the character was. Friz Freleng, he was more of a little timid. For Chuck, he was the smart foil to Daffy's lunacy. Okay. And so, as I was, what do you want from this this version of what we're doing? They would look at each other like, I don't know what he's talking about. So if nobody ever told me what they want from me, my sweet spot for Porky is about 1953 to 1957. Chuck Jones. It's Strip Along Daffy. It's Duck Dodgers. It's Robin Hood Daffy. That's where I think Mel Blanc just finally, at that point, that was the character.
Right.
And that's what if I'm not asked what to do with the character, that's where my mind goes to. But we just finished 200 plus shorts for Max. It was HBO Max, and they had more of a Bob Clampett, Tex Avery, zany Looney Tunes feel. So it was really cool to be able to play that version of the late 30s, early 40s version of the characters. But early on, it was a lot of, man, I hope I'm doing the big guy proud. I hope the writing is as good, all that stuff. After a while, I just kind of did my thing. You asked, is it a difficult voice? No, it's not. Not for me. It's easier to do him than it is to do me in a voiceover gig because I'm just much more comfortable in pig skin than my skin.
Sure. So as far as that stutter goes, again, working on this since you were a child, but it's more than just a stutter. There's a rhythm to it.
I talked about that rhythm in a documentary called "I Know That Voice," and I can't. I go to fan conventions, Comic Cons.
Sure,
I'm going to one week in Texas. It's in Conroe, Texas, ladies and gentlemen. If you go to my website or just check it out, it's an anime convention in Conroe, Texas.
I'll put it in the notes to the episode too.
There we go. People will stand in front of me and do my voices for them, for me rather. And I'm like, oh, what am I supposed to say?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I hope you get the job next time there's auditions. But so people will inevitably say catchphrases from the cartoons, either that's all, folks, or just something that they remember, like from Robin Hood Daffy. They cut it out. I'm serious. If you don't know where Robin Hood is, just say so. Okay, great. You can do the catchphrases from that short. Now read the front page of the newspaper as that character.
Right.
Oh, every time I work, it's a new script. So it's not just being able to master the voice and master the stutter. You have to tell a story and stay in character and be charming. But the most important thing is the story, is the script.
Right.
So that's, I think, the difficult part when people say, "Oh, I want to play a classic character." They can mimic the catchphrases, but they don't know the character. Because if you really know the character, I'll tell you. I don't know if I think I've told the story, but when we auditioned for the first Space Jam,
okay,
and it was callback after callback after callback, it was down to about 6 of us. And for the last callback, they handed out Shakespeare.
Oh, wow.
and they had us do Hamlet's To Be or Not to Be. And I looked at that. It was cold, but I knew it. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh, this is great. And I'm looking at the room and everybody else is terrified. And I'm like, I think this is my job, because I could easily do To Be or Not to Be as Porky Pig. That was easier than reading the actual audition from the actual movie, because I knew this. I knew Hamlet, and because it was Hamlet and it was Porky Pig, I just thought it was poetic.
It really is. It really is. But, you touch on a very important thing there. It's more so than just mastering the voice. It's getting to know the character that's behind that voice, where the voice is coming from, and how that character would perceive either situations or text before them.
Right. Right. Yeah. And a lot of times, people think when you do what I do, even if it's an original character, it's just the voice. No, all characters have a voice, but not all voices have character. So it really doesn't matter what the character sounds like. What matters is the personality, right, the conflict, the relationships with the other characters, the story, and all the subtext that an actor does, whether it's stage, film, or a cartoon.
Right. And just hearing you talk about those conventions, I can't imagine how difficult sometimes it would have to be to hear impression after impression, and then them just waiting for your opinion. That would be trying for me.
You want to be nice, because if it weren't for these amazing people, I wouldn't have a house. So, so I'm grateful to them. I do enjoy meeting them. It's kind of fun, because before the internet and fan conventions, we had a job, but we had no idea if we impacted people or if they even watched it. So
that's a good point.
You go to these conventions and people know more about you or remember more about you than you do.
That's got to be a good feeling, though. How neat.
It's fun. It's fun.
So, in your estimate, then, having voiced Porky and all these other characters for so many years now, what is it in your estimate that keeps Looney Tunes relevant almost 100 years later? There's been so many great cartoon characters over the years that just, over time just kind of slip away, but Looney Tune characters are always relevant. And I'm curious what you think that is.
Well, you're actually wrong.
No?
Here's what happened. I started doing Porky in 1990. That was the tail end of Saturday morning cartoons.
Okay.
Because Cartoon Network and Disney Channel popped up. So now they have 24/7 cartoons. So the network started doing live action shows like Saved by the Bell on NBC, instead of cartoons, whether they were new or the classics. And Nickelodeon was airing the Looney Tunes for a while, and Fox Afternoons was airing the Looney Tunes for a while.
Sure.
And then they stopped airing them. And then we did the movie Space Jam, and that brought them back a little bit. And then they died down again, and there wasn't much content. And then we did a show called Duck Dodgers, and Duck Dodgers led to a few other projects. One was called Lunatics that I really wasn't a part of, except for one episode. It was not my favorite. And then we did the Looney Tunes show and New Looney Tunes, and now these HBO Max shorts. But they're not in the public eye the way they were when you and I were kids, where they were everywhere, and they had the Warner Brothers stores and whatnot. So I'm doing a show right now called Bugs Bunny Builders, which is a preschool show with the characters, and it's really well done. And trust me, I'm picky. If I didn't think something was good, I would just keep my mouth shut about it. Right. But I think we're at an interesting place right now. The second Space Jam movie was not a huge success. The HBO Max cartoons are great, but you got to get Max to watch them.
Yeah,
I'm sure they'll pop up on Cartoon Network, but it's a very different world we're living in as far as where people consume content. So I'm not an executive with a studio. I don't know what their plans are. I don't know if they've got 4 or 5 projects down the road they're just waiting to do.
Right.
I don't know if they're going, hey, we got to wait for something major, some brilliant idea, and then we'll do it. I don't know. So they're not as, when I see people at conventions and they're under the age of 40, they may or may not know who these characters are. So, and which makes me kind of sad because everybody knows
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess I've always thought that, everyone knows who these
Well,
characters
yeah,
are, but
because you're a fan. You
yeah.
you like these characters. But I think we've got generations of kids today who would say, "Who's Popeye?"
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
who's Bowling?
but at the same time, they don't make new iterations of Popeye. Like, I mean, I think there were a few in the '90s, but it kind of seemed to peter out somewhere along the way. Where with Looney Tunes, there was that law, and then of course medium changes. But it seems like
Right?
they're always somewhere at some point.
Yeah, and diehard cartoon fans know everything, but the general public used to be exposed to
True.
all these cartoons. And by the way, the reason why Looney Tunes were associated with television is because when TV started, well, they didn't have any content for kids. These Looney Tunes, all cartoons, were made for adults in theaters before adult movies.
Oh, right, like cereals and stuff.
Well, not even just serials. I mean, before the very first Tweety cartoon debuted before the movie Casablanca.
No kidding.
Oh, these cartoons were not for children. They were for adults to be played before adult movies. And if you look at these cartoons, they're pretty darn sophisticated. There's a lot of humor in these cartoons that the kids would not understand, but the adults are going, "Oh, that is funny. That's irony. That's satire." And
Right.
so TV starts and they're like, "Well, we need content for kids. We can't be doing Howdy Doody,
Right.
all day long. That's expensive." And they're like, "We have all these cartoons. It won't cost us a dime to broadcast these cartoons." So that's why they started broadcasting Mighty Mouse, Looney Tunes, Popeye, even the Three Stooges. So, people associate this stuff with TV. They were made for the theaters.
Wow. I did not know that. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew they did that kind of stuff in theaters, but I didn't know that's where some of Looney Tunes and those characters came from. But
Yeah.
you bring up a interesting point I haven't thought about. With the medium change and you starting your career before all that. Working when it was mainly just network television and working through the bang of the internet and the rise of the streaming services. What's your opinion of the way television has evolved? Is it something you like? Is there something lost?
It's interesting. I was on the board of governors of the TV Academy for 10 years representing actors, which I loved. It was just a wonderful time in my career to do that.
Sure.
And I'm in the Motion Picture Academy as well. Blessing and curse. It's really cool to have so much content at your fingertips, but it's so much. How do you watch everything? How do you choose what to watch? I can tell you that as an adult, because I was so busy at the time, I have never seen a complete episode of Cheers. I've never seen a complete episode of Frasier.
Wow.
And not because, and when I do watch them, they're brilliant.
Right.
But it's not because I didn't like them. It was because they came on the air when I was beginning my career, and I had, survival jobs 5 days, 7 nights a week to pay the bills so I could pursue acting. And I was just too busy to watch TV. And that was when there was only 3 networks.
Right.
Today, oh my gosh, with Paramount Plus and Apple and Amazon and Netflix, what I'll do is I'll find a show and watch it. For instance, Mrs. Maisel, Ted Lasso, brilliant. Love them both. Never seen Succession. Here it's great. Just started watching Only Murders in the Building. I just started season 2. I just can't watch it all.
Right.
And I think the problem is there's too much.
Yes.
Not that there's too much bad stuff. There's too much great stuff. And the industry has got to reevaluate what it means to have a rating. Because we're not going to have ratings like the last episode of MASH ever again.
Exactly.
And the Super Bowl still does great, but it has no competition. Right. So, the vastness that is content with streaming, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. The bad thing is there's just so much. You don't have water cooler conversations because nobody watches TV in real time because everything is on demand. You watch it when you want to watch it. So I miss that connection. that, ooh, hey, everybody, did you see that Sinatra special last night? Wasn't that great? Well, no, I didn't see it, but I plan to watch it tomorrow. I remember when they started with VCRs, when we would tape
Right.
shows. And don't tell me about it. I have it on my VHS. And so now, you see conversations on social media. Bless their heart if they say spoiler alert on the last episode of Mrs. Maisel, then I can just keep scrolling because I don't want. But the schmucks that don't say spoiler alert,
Oh, yeah.
oh, I didn't need to read that. It's just too vast. That's my opinion. It's just too vast, too much.
Too vast, and not as much opportunity for a show that could have the possibility to be a smash hit to be a smash hit, because it could be just getting looked over with so much happening
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But all right, I got to jump over to something else I've read, is that you are the official audio double for Mark Hamill when it comes to voicing Luke Skywalker.
I wouldn't put it that way. I auditioned for the character for one game, and then they just kept hiring me. So again,
Okay.
none of us have a lifetime contract for anything, but I've done them a lot.
Sure. Quite a bit.
Yeah.
In a lot of games and projects that, I played when I was growing up. But I know this isn't the first time, voicing an iconic character that's already had a voice for you, obviously. But, Star Wars fans sometimes can be very rabid. And I'm curious if there was ever, how do I want to phrase this? Any initial concerns or worries with voicing Luke because of that?
Not because of that. My concern was that I couldn't do Mark Hamill. And when I got the audition, and it was today we audition in our home studio, just
Right.
us. And before that, we would audition in our agents' offices. Before that, we would go to an audition. And this was for an in-person audition. And they want you to audition for Luke Skywalker for a game. And I said to my agent, I can't do Mark Hamill. That's not my thing. Let him do it. And my agent calls the producers, and the producers called back and said, no, we hear something in Bob's voice. We think he's in the right range. We'd still like him to come in. And I went into the audition, and I said to the gang from LucasArts, I said, you guys, I don't do Mark Hamill. And they said, don't do Mark Hamill, do Luke Skywalker. I was like, oh, okay. Help me here. What do you just?
Right.
I mean, I know the character. I mean, I never was a diehard Star Wars fan. I just saw all the movies like everybody else and had fun.
Right.
I never collected the action figures. I couldn't tell an Obi-Wan from a Kenobi. So I just didn't know. So they gave me a Reader's Digest version of who he was throughout the first three movies. Which I guess are really the middle movies.
At the time, they were the first.
At the time, they were the first three movies. And they said there's pre-Jedi Luke and there's post-Jedi Luke. Pre-Jedi Luke, he's a young kid, kind of whiny and doesn't really know anything. And he's always just there and he just wants more. And then he gets this thing called the Force, and he gets more centered. And he gets a little bit more, may the Force, but just a little bit more centered. I went, okay. So I auditioned for the game and I got it. And I said to my agent, before you say yes, I need to have you call Mark Hamill's agent and make sure he doesn't want to do this, because I'm not going to take a part from an actor if they really want to do it.
Sure.
And I also, if it was a money thing, it was like, I am Luke Skywalker. You should pay me more than the average voice actor. I'm like, pay him. He should do it. At that time, I think he was distancing himself from the franchise, trying to do different things. So he was not going to be a part of it. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And I forget the first one I did, but it was reviewed in the LA Times. And in the end of the review, it said something like, great game. And the best part is they got Mark Hamill to play Luke Skywalker.
Wow.
And so I called my agent and I said, and I don't play games, so I haven't seen it. I said, did he do it? Was I replaced? And she called them up and they said, no, that's you. So the reviewer didn't stay for the credit either. So I was like, well, I guess that's a good review, huh?
That's a damn good review. Had to make you feel pretty darn good. I know it would me. Did you ever talk to Mark Hamill in later years about
Oh, sure.
voicing
Oh,
Luke?
yeah.
Luke?
Yeah, one year we were nominated together, opposite each other for an Emmy, and we tried to get together for dinner just to celebrate, but he was busy doing something. Oh yeah, we're not like, what are you doing for Passover? Come over, let's talk Moses. We're not that close, but we're like, I remember seeing him in the lobby of the studio where I was doing one of the Looney Tunes things, and he's like, "Oh my God, I would love to do a Looney Tunes something or other." And I went into the booth and I said to our producer, Mark Hamill's outside. He'd like to do a Looney Tunes. So they hired him to do an episode, but it wasn't a day I wasn't in it. So I was really bummed I didn't get a chance to work with him.
God.
But I will tell you, just if you follow him on social media, he is that guy. He's so nice. He answers fans. I'm not sure if Mark Hamill will see this, and he's like, he saw it. And I mean, he's just a sweet, sweet, kind, generous, grateful. He's a grateful guy. And he's kind of sort of back doing this character in the movies. So I it wouldn't surprise me if I haven't done a game as Luke for years. I did do a Robot Chicken in the last season playing current Luke in the movies. And not sure why he didn't do it, but it's older Luke.
Like from the new Disney films, you're saying?
Yeah, that's a harder Luke to do. Yeah, that's a harder Luke to do because he's older and he's a little grizzled, and Mark's voice is a little bit more. It's different. So I'm still trying to keep him young and keep that, but get that little bit of a raspy edge to him. So that's more of a challenge than anything else I've ever had to do because my voice is still kind of like young Luke. So that was for Seth Green for Robot Chicken, and I think they're it's awesome. They're a little more forgiving, I think, with impressions and stuff, but it's also the best writing on TV.
Right, and it kind of harks back to what you were saying about Porky. I mean, there were different versions of Porky's voice, but then with Luke, there's like different stages of the character's development and age, obviously, that offer different Lukes you have to learn.
Yeah.
Now, on your website, bobbergen.com, one thing I saw is you offer voice lessons for people who were just like yourself, looking to learn from the greats. Can you tell a little bit about that class?
Well, I'm not doing classes anymore. I'm just doing private coaching, and that was a byproduct of COVID.
I see.
I've been doing group workshops since the mid-'80s, and then COVID hit and couldn't do that anymore. Right. So I always was resistant doing this Zoom sort of coaching because I kind of needed that. There's something about in person. There's something about the eye contact with the person in the studio. And there's something about, even walking up to them at the mic and putting my hand on their shoulder going, oh, okay, that was good now. Because sometimes I can see they're lacking confidence. It has nothing to do with their talent. They need just some kind of a connection. And I was like, I can't do that from a machine. But over a few months when COVID first happened, people were like, well, would you do Zoom coaching? And I'm like, all right, I'll try it. But if I suck, I'm sorry. And not only did I not suck, I loved it. And I can spend more one-on-one time with somebody for an hour than I can in a group workshop for 5-10 minutes at the mic during an evening. So it's got about a 2 to 4 year wait list.
Holy shit. That is amazing.
Well, my group class had a 4-year wait list when COVID hit. So, but I always tell people, get on the list because not everybody is available when it's their turn. And so I've gotten to people who, oh no, I abandoned voiceover years ago. Oh, okay, great. Thanks for telling me.
That's what I was going to say. A good way to wean out the people who just had a fleeting interest in it rather than a serious.
I will bump people up my list if they have an audition they want coaching for, and it fits into my schedule because there's a time that time sensitive part of the equation on an audition. You can't call me in 2 years. No, it's been cast. So, and if an agent or a casting director refers somebody, I will bump them up my list. But my class and the information's on my website. I'll tell you, I'm not cheap, but I don't want to be cheap because I want people who are serious about this.
And why should you be? You're a voice legend.
Well, it isn't even that, and I appreciate that, but that's not why. What I want serious people, and I also want people who are actors. You don't take a cartoon voiceover class as the first step. You
Right.
take acting classes, improv classes. You become a good actor, and then you study the technique and craft of voiceover. So I purposely priced for professionals, or at least for people who are on the road to competing and pursuing. But some people spend the hour working on original characters, and some people spend the hour on, I got a demo, I've got an agent. What do I do? How do I market? How do I get myself more? And sometimes people just need reassurance that, no, you're good. Your choices are great. You don't keep trying to fix yourself. And some people need fixing. So
Sure.
There's no level to it as far as, well, I've got an agent, but I've never booked a cartoon. I've got an agent. I book cartoons all the time, but I've never played this kind of character. They always think of me of this, and I want to prove myself to be able to do some other kinds, like a person who always plays villains, and they're dying to play a creature, or they're dying to play something like Looney and something a Smurf, So yeah, and sometimes you have to know you can do it. You have to excel at it, and then you have to update your demo and show your agent, see what I can do. But you might need some coaching for that journey.
Now, have you ever kept in touch or kept an eye on any of the people you've coached to see what they've done, or is it just a one-off thing and they go on their way?
It's a good question. I'll get notes from people. Hi, you remember me? I took your class in 1993. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to help. It's like when people come up to me at a fan convention and they'll say, we're Facebook friends. I'm like, I got 5,000. I don't know.
What's that mean?
or we met at San Diego Comic-Con, and I'm like, oh, I thought you looked familiar. You were like one of, 200,000 people. Yeah, that was you. I will tell you that it doesn't happen often, and I'm 30 plus years teaching. But when that person comes to the mic that first day in a class, and you're like, oh, they've got the it factor. It is a matter of time. You know it. I would never tell them that because I don't want to give them a swelled ego.
Sure.
And I don't want them to stop trying just because I'm thinking, oh yeah, they're gonna take work away from you someday.
Right.
And that is not a complaint. That is the ultimate goal as a coach, is that they compete with you. I can count on probably less than two hands the number of times I've seen the it factor. Steve Bloom had the it factor. Max Mittelman had the it factor. J.P. Karliak, Misty Lee. I'm drawing a blank right now. But it's like a slap in the face. They're that good.
Right.
You just know, holy cow. And then there are the people that are that good, but they don't have a work ethic.
Oh, I see.
Or they maybe they're I use the term trust fund baby. They've got more money than God because their family gave them a lot of money, and they don't have to work.
Right.
So they're brilliant, but they don't go the distance.
They're not hungry.
And then I see people who are dirt poor, who have the it factor and are willing to do and spend and invest whatever it takes to compete. And that's, to me, the most exciting actor, because they earn it. They've got the skills. I think you're born an actor. I think you're born with talent. But what class does is it teaches you technique to recreate your talent consistently at will. And boy, these people who are like, oh, that was me. I was working 5 days, 7 nights a week in survival jobs. The first 5 years I had an agent because I wasn't making a living at voiceover. I was paying my bills with my day jobs and trying to build a career. So those are the people that excite me. The ones that have that it factor with talent and that work ethic it factor.
Right. And that makes absolute sense. I mean, there's got to be times that someone's forked over the money to take the class, or someone that you have to sit there and teach, that you're just, man, this isn't going to go anywhere. I'm wasting my time in some sense.
Well, I've never told any student, don't waste your money. You don't have the skills, because lousy actors get lucky breaks every day. And it's not my place to
Sure.
stop somebody's journey where they could be that one lucky actor. But what I will tell people is, look, stop spending money on voiceover classes and get thee to a really good acting class and study acting for a couple of years and then go back to voiceover. Or I might say to somebody in my class when I did classes, you're so good. Why are you so lazy? You clearly don't work on your craft. You clearly aren't ambitious. You don't really have a work ethic. You're spending a lot of money on this class. I would never recommend you to an agent or a casting director. I'd say they're brilliant, but they're going to fall flat because they just they're not hungry. And then I've had people who were freaking brilliant, but they were so low on confidence.
Oh, yeah.
But that's normal. I think everybody has the imposter syndrome where you're like, when are they going to catch on? I have no idea what I'm doing, and I got really lucky. But that's everybody in every job, no matter what you do.
It's
That's
the truth.
That's just life.
It's the truth. That's interesting as hell. You could write a book just on that alone, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably. And I'll have to partner with a psychologist because I have a feeling that I need an expert to say, no, you're absolutely right, but here's our point of view on what you're saying.
Right. So as far as what you got going on in the future, Bob, what's down the pike for you?
Lots of stuff work-wise that I can't talk about because we do NDAs, and
Sure.
you have to keep your mouth shut. Bugs Bunny Builders, Looney Tunes cartoons, that's for Warner Brothers. Spidey and His Amazing Friends, I'm working on that. I've done that for a few seasons. A show called Dewdrop Diaries for DreamWorks. Oddballs for Netflix. It's Pony, Nickelodeon. Lots of stuff. I've been busy. The 2.5 years of COVID have been the busiest of my career. I think because the voiceover world kept going when all other acting genres died because they couldn't go to studio. We kept going. So it's been really, really good.
We had Tara Strong on the show some time ago, and she said that exact same thing. During COVID, you guys were the only ones working, and that all these like big name actors were trying to exodus into voice acting because there was no work for them, and that you guys were just all kind of like, we're good. We have the people we need. You can't just rush in here because of your name.
We also never recorded cartoons from our home studio. We did auditions from our home studio, and we might have done some voiceover from here, but for animation, we would go in studio. And within 2 to 4 weeks, everybody had upgraded their space at their house, broadcast quality. And I've only been in studio 5 times since COVID. And I don't.
Hell, really?
Yeah. And if I never have to go in studio again, I'll be thrilled. I love working from home. There's no LA traffic when you work from home. So, I mean, the only traffic I have is walking out of my studio to get another cup of coffee in the kitchen. Or I might go, I've got an hour. I can do some laundry. I mean, I really dig this new normal that is recording cartoons.
Right. I would imagine so. Everybody would work from home, I think, if they could. I wish I could. That's amazing.
I don't know. I know a lot of voice actors that were starving to go back in studio, and a lot have. But man, no, I love this.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Before I cut you loose, Bob, did you have anything you wanted to plug?
Just one little thing. If people are interested in getting into doing what I do, yes, I coach. It's got a long wait list. But next January, a coach and casting director, Marilyn Listener, and I are doing our second voiceover cruise. We did one in 2019, and we planned to make it an annual thing.
Oh, wow.
Well, this pandemic happened, and we couldn't do it. So we're doing one next January. It's the end of January. If people email, I can actually send you a link with all the information if you want to post it with. But it's a 10-day round trip from San Francisco, Mexican Riviera. So there's lots of things to see cruise-wise. But on the ship, there's 5 workshop days, 2 animation, 2 commercial, and a day of talking about marketing and demos and agents and all that stuff. There is absolutely no level to this. Everything from I'm interested in voiceover to I'm a working actor. But we're only taking 40 students, and we're right now a little over halfway booked. So if people are interested, they should inquire, and I'll send you the link with all the information on who to contact. And if they have questions, they can ask me. You can include my email address if you want. That's fine.
Okay.
But but it's fun, and it's a really neat, always a neat group, because everybody's, if you pardon the expression, on the same boat. I mean, everybody is there for the same reason. So it's really neat to be on a ship doing voiceover with cocktails is really fun. It's a lot of fun.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that would be a blast. Yeah, please send me that link. I'll definitely attach it to the episode.
I will do that.
And you said that's in January?
January next year.
January next year.
End of January. I don't have the information in front of me right now, but I'll forward that to you.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to keep in touch, because as we get closer, we can further promote it, assuming it's not booked up. Well,
I was going to say promote it ASAP if you can, or whenever you post this. Cruises fill up early.
Oh yeah, no, I plan to promote it as soon as this goes up. But I mean,
and once the ship is completely sold out, it doesn't matter if we've got enough students. There's no room. So yeah, cruises book up early, but it's going to be fun.
It's good. Yeah, I would say so. I'm jealous. Bob, this has been amazing to talk with you. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time.
This was fun. You're very good at what you do.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So are you.
Bet. Yeah, that's right.
All right, everyone. And there it is. My conversation with Bob Bergen. I want to thank him once again so much for taking time to be on the show with me, because it's always so incredible to talk to these people that have been a part of my life and your guys' life for so many years. And then they're right here on the screen talking to me. It's incredible. It never ceased to be amazing. And especially in this case, the legendary Bob Bergen. Check him out at bobbergen.com and on social media at bergen.bob. Don't forget to find us on Twitter at CannedAirPod and on Instagram at canned_air and CannedAirPodcast.com. Once again, is the hub to find past episodes of ours. What else? There's a link to our merch, t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, stickers with the Canned Air logo on it. A link to the Patreon page, where for a little bit of money every month, you get some extra content in return that's not open to the general public. What else? I feel like I'm forgetting something big. It's weird doing this with the rest of the guys not here sometimes. But I think that's everything other than Evergreen Podcast Network, the network we're so very proud to be a part of. Lots of great shows on that network. Check them out at evergreenpodcasts.com. And I think that's going to do it for this week. So until next time, I am Jeremy Colley, and thanks so much for watching.